someone who never showed up and still got the honorarium. That's how you make change. You put an emotion on the first meeting that says you do not get honorarium for not attending meetings. And then second to that, you put in Skype. So my agenda for the first meeting of elected, I will write my motions up as I usually, and I will bring them and say, here's a motion that I want. And I remember, there were members, some council would say, well, we don't need to go to motion. I was like, yes, because I want to know, you who don't say nothing and you don't say something, you're going to say something now because he's going to call it to vote, put your hand up, yes or no. Then when it goes out on the internet to people, they'll say, geez, he voted no, he voted yes, so there is a voice finally, or there's no voice again. Because that's the only way people are going to know what's going on. You call it to motion, you're forced to vote publicly as a council member. That's what you're put on for, is to vote. You're not voted to say no comment. We voted you to give us a comment. And I think that's the part that we have to get to, is you need to make council publicly stand up and say what you voted on. Otherwise, we're frustrated, and I think that's what I hear the common concern from everyone, is we're frustrated because we don't know what's going on.
Well, that's the thing, we don't know what's on it, we don't know where to go, because we went and asked, sent letters, so they're supposed to ask, so you go to a meeting, not the time, you go to the office, it's not the time, it's, well, what is the time? Who do we see? So I know this is all we're doing, it's all better, we go ask questions, we get that.
But if you make them vote, Frank, in a duly convened meeting, if you say Pepsi or Coke, the chief is forced, once a motion is put to the table, the chief is forced to call it to vote. Because he would tell me occasionally, why don't you want to put it to motion? I didn't ask for your permission, I'm putting a motion on the floor. And then you'd look at me like, I'm putting a motion on the floor. I want to know where they stand because they're sitting there. Pepsi or Coke? And you'd see some of them like, well, I'm not sure. Well, you better make a vote, because if you don't, you lost your right to speak. So say Pepsi or Coke. And that's my tip to you. My political advisory people, who are all trained and seasoned vets helping very big people, they tell me the only way you make people make changes by making them vote publicly so you know what's going on.
That's our biggest thing, a lot of it is done when there's nobody there.
Exactly.
To make sure it's done.
So I don't care if I get on the council, but for anybody, if you want to know where people stand, make them vote. Make them say yes or no, then you'll know. They're like Pepsi or Coke. If they just say, well, I'm not sure, then you'll know where you vote next time.
Okay, Peter has
Talking about conflict of interest, we passed a resolution a month ago that the CEO cannot hold two positions, council and that. So we're addressing the issue. It's taking time, but I see the conflict there with your manager, and you're telling something else. You know, it's happened time and time again. And it makes us look bad here. But we're trying to address the issue.
The chief was the CEO,
A
wasn't
lot of
it?
people will not accept the fact that you can sit on council and make a decision on your job.
So how long was the chief the CEO?
For 3 months. For 3 months.
3 months?
I didn't like that.
So he got paid his honorarium and he got paid for being
Well,
CEO.
that I can't tell you, because it never came to the table.
So like stuff like that, we as band members should know.
Oh, yeah.
And we don't know. So like hearing you talk about new technology and all of that, good luck. I can't even get a newsletter.
Who's to say that the council can't vote on the block and say this is what we did at the meeting? Now, how hard would that be?
The rest of the councils are they're getting in trouble, but
Who's voting your off? You're trying to help these guys. I don't keep them guys.
I have my site was never closed down for Oak Creek Central Council 2009, and I sent to, I don't know how many times I sent something out for people to tell me what their problems were. I didn't get one response, not one, and it's out there. And people, now it's come, and now it's election time. Everybody's having these complaints.
Nobody got a CDA.
I've never, even I know, like, is there concerns? Nobody ever sent anything. I've had phone calls, like, sure, I get phone calls on, but like, if social media is there, give me some people that aren't around, give me something. Let me show where I can go, be effective in some direction, some way, somehow. Just to answer the question on conflict of interest, I believe there's
interesting.
A gross conflict of interest when it comes to managers. Managers are who run the administration. That's what their sole purpose is. When you got a seat on council as an administrator of programs, and you can basically have a little bit to do with having people within council help favor what you want, you're not really giving yourself, you're not giving the opportunity for everybody else to say. But then again, for the lower level, they're not, I don't believe that it's so much a problem. But you gotta remember, you're taking away the choice of the people when you tell them they can't do something. Everybody has a fair right to have voice and opinion of who they want represented. And we take away that choice from them, what are we becoming?
But when you work for Coca-Cola, you can't participate in their contests.
Yeah, true enough. I like.
Any other organization that I know of, if you're an employee, you don't get the vote and you don't get to participate in those things. And we have to get to that in Indian country because that's what segregates us. But I mean, there's particulars to work out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But Coca-Cola can never participate in the Coca-Cola contest for a free vacation. But in Garden River, you're guaranteed a free vacation if you're on council, plus you have a job, plus you get an honorarium, plus you get a trip to Toronto, and you don't have to give a report ever. So that's the best job ever.
And you get the advance.
And you get an
Brian, you had a comment?
In response to your question about conflict of interest, I agree as well. Especially with the managers, I believe there is a conflict of interest again in the lower, non-managerial positions. Not so much, but definitely with management. And I think there should be a separation between chief and council and administration. Administration is already set up and designed to be managed over. Chief and council should be separated.
I think you raise a concern. That's another thing. Managers need to be at the meetings all the time. You're paid top up to manage. You better be here to respond to the membership questions because I don't want to know day to day, as you say, administration. And then you go to the meeting, well, we'll have to check with the manager, but we won't be seeing it until the next election. It's not an option. You need to be at the meeting so you can handle the day to day, give the facts out. That's transparency. You're paid. And we all know they get good money. Whether it's enough, I don't know, but it's money. They should be at the meeting, especially the monthly meeting. That's the duty of the manager to the people, not an option. If you don't come, then they'll be reprimanded. That should be one of the top things on their job description. You will report at the monthly meeting, plus do the rest of the duties. You, the manager, make me, the council, look stupid when you don't show up because I can't answer the questions.
Okay, Councilor had a comment.
In terms of conflict of interest, one of the things that you have to have is you have to have policies in place that clearly define what conflict of interest is in relation to positions, in relation to those that are hired. And it doesn't mean, for example, sometimes here's where there's always a debate. Is that, okay, you start defining family relationships in terms of conflict of interest. You know, and some people will say, well, how do you define this? Does it go to as far as cousin? Does it go as far as uncles, aunts? And in terms of conflict of interest, well, it's not just about defining relationships, but it's also about defining the involvement that somebody has. So, for example, it might be if a staff position it involves a relative. Well, you should be declaring conflict and leaving the room. It doesn't mean that the person can't be hired, depending on what kind of position it is, or depends on what the issue is. But it means that you should be declaring conflict that it's a relationship of yours. And there should be some policy in place that supports conflict of interest and how it's addressed. And adherence to that. Now, Caroline made something very important. She said, yeah, we have some very good bylaws, we have some very good policies. Unfortunately, they've been breached. Well, there's my suggestion, and if I am elected, one of the things I will push for, is that there be a new portfolio, an ethics portfolio. And that ethics portfolio, there should be council members that sit on it and monitor ethics, and look at some of the ethical issues, and ensure that there's enforcement of those ethics, and they come forward at the public meetings. Any ethical breaches, any of those things come up. We have an ethics committee, or we have an ethics portfolio in place, and we start addressing those issues. And when you put light on, you expose light to those kinds of issues, they vanish.
Part of the problem we find is people with ethics that the community likes.
Oh, I'm willing.
You know what I mean? Like, there's been a loss of faith in many people, and to restore that faith will, I think it's going to have to be a very powerful first month of leadership when they get elected, because the people are frustrated, and the rest of the world is in an uproar over things, and Garden River is not officially picketing and protesting, but there's a lot of frustrated people in Garden River in the past 2 years.
The first role of members of council, chief of council, are as role models. And as a councillor, chief of council, the first duty to the people is to act as role models. And as role models, that is where we have the support and backing of the community.
I gotta go pretty soon, my daughter, they're waiting for me at my desk. When it comes to administrative duties, manager, CEO, myself personally, in 4 years, I found that we've had way too much involvement. It's sick how much involvement that Caroline has put up with on her time. These things that happened shouldn't have happened, overturned decisions. There was such a political interference, it kind of made me sick. As a council body, you're there as a political body, you're there to go and look for more funding, you're there to educate, you're there to go to protest, you're there to try and make things better. You're not supposed to be sitting in here dilly-dallying in council administration, office administration. There's no business for us to be in there whatsoever. I'm not trained to be a CEO. I shouldn't be making decisions based on the CEO. Other council members should be making decisions based on the CEO. Those are decisions that people are paid to make. And that's the one thing, one fault with every council, probably everywhere. They stick their nose into administrative duties. They stick their nose into administrative bodies. And when you do that, you're taking away the power of your CEO to effectively administer rules, regulations, policies, and procedures. And once those are gone, and they know that the council is going to back anybody up against your CEO is dead in the water, because there's no one backing her up. And for whoever they do bring in for the next term, they have the same problem with councilman Kurtz. What do you think is going to happen? Keep doing the same thing. I'm not saying that people are doing stuff, but general consensus is that people, if they do something wrong, they just run to chief of council, and then chief of council goes and takes away whatever happens. And that's wrong. There's way too much political interference by council. We need to be going after education, we need to be going after healthcare care issues. The healthcare system was already destroyed by the Canadian government. They've gotten away with it. Now they're moving to our education because they found a way to effectively destroy the healthcare system. So now they're going to use the same rules will apply to the way they do it, and they start cutting back on our funding. And that's the sad thing about it is, and for a political body like ourselves, we shouldn't do these kind of things. We're not. I'm guilty of that because I haven't been out there called politically advocating. I've been more or less working with utilities, and that's where I've spent a lot of my time in those issues, trying to make it better for the people. That's something that I need to improve on. If I am voting against going after the government, having more say going against the government, because the fact of the matter is I spend way too much time in administration.
Okay, Caroline, and then Caroline.
I think Liz, maybe without even knowing it, may have answered her own question. Why nobody talks on that chief of council? Number one, they have an honorarium that was doubled right at the beginning of the term and given 2 years in advance. That way, that council was all bought and paid for. You only speak when you're told to, and you only sign what I tell you. They're all bought and paid for, so what are they going to say? They don't have a voice. And secondly, out of all the people that are on the list, I don't know what they're 55 or 60 or something, there's only 12